everyone. Welcome to day 3 of the In Place of War Changemaker Summit. Hi to everyone who's watching on Facebook Live and on our website and on Twitch. My name's Bobby and I'm a senior project manager at In Place of War. And for anyone that doesn't know, In Place of War are a global charity that believe in the power of art and culture to create social change. For our session today, we're going to be joined by the amazing Ana Karla from Brazil. We've actually pre-recorded her talk, which we're going to stream in a second, but Ana will be joining herself at the end for a live Q&A. So if you have any questions, please type them in the chat as we go through. As I say, we'll come back to them at the end and answer as many as we can. Okay, I'm going to hand over to Ana now. Thanks very much.
Hi guys, thank you so much for saving this time to hear me and to be here today. I'm recording, but in the end of the session, in the end of the presentation, I will be talking to you live. So if you guys have any questions, you can ask me later, or you can ask me through the presentation so you won't forget your questions and I will answer them all in the end. My name is Ana Karla Santos. I'm a cultural producer. I'm a social media. I have been working with advertising and marketing for almost 6 years now. And if you guys want to talk about more what you felt during the presentation, if you have deeper questions, you can also find me on my Instagram at Ana Karla SES or my email, anakarlasgs@gmail.com. And sorry for my broken English because I'm Brazilian, but today I'll be trying my best to lead you through the journey of great figures of the Black history. And my main goal is with my work is to make sure that people know that we have great black examples in all periods of history. Today we have a lot of great examples to follow. We can be these great examples and we can show ourselves through internet to other people. We can inspire other people. So my main goal with this presentation and with my work is to break this media representation about what a Black person is, what a Black person does. And I want to break this stereotype, bring you good representation in the media. And I'm so sorry that I'm not online, but you guys already know that we'll have questions in the end. And what I'm most excited about is that I will be talking about Black people who thrive it, and that includes me and you. So today, I hope you feel inspired to change the way you see yourself after this presentation also. And if you're not a Black person, but you are part of a minority, I want you to be inspired by this chat also and to try to understand how you can see your community through this conversation and through these examples. And if you're not part of a minority, I hope this talk would be good for you to take your time to research more about minorities and these examples and be more empathetic about minorities during all the times, especially the harder times like now with COVID, but all the time in your life. So let's go through it. This was me when I was 3 years old. And then when I was this young, I had a really difficult life. My building was terrible. I lived in a building who was terrible. It was in a bad suburb in my hometown. And I live it in above drug dealers. My street was really busy and really crazy and really dangerous. But when I was a kid, I never felt like I was in danger because my mother is a kindergarten teacher and she always made me feel so safe and so special and so beautiful. She did all this work to protect me from outside bad reference, of course. And then my father was a construction worker, is a construction worker. And he didn't have this approach by talking to me, but he was a great example to me. He is a great example to me, and he always made sure that I feel safe and loved and beautiful by actions. So I had these two main figures in my life that were like my safe space. They were always reassuring me of my power, always empowering me. So when I was 3 years old, I had all this going on in my head, in, outside me, outside my reference, outside my house. But my parents made me feel so good inside my own body. So I never felt like something bad could happen to me or that I was going to be a bad person. And I grew up like this until I was a teenager. This is a photo of me with like 15 years old, 14, 15 years old, I think. And then when I started to grow up and to be more aware of people's opinions on Black people and races and prejudice, I started to feel smaller in this emotional sense. I I grew up so confident. I was so confident growing up. And then when I became a teenager, a preteen, all this outside reference is started to follow me in school, at the beach, traveling. I was always hearing something bad about being Black. I was always feeling like all this power that I had was a lie because people took that power away from me. So this stage in my life was really critical. I felt helpless. I felt really weak. And when I try to talk to younger people, I always try to make them feel understood because I had this period when I thought that being myself wasn't enough. So this was this period. And then I had the opportunity to go to college. Here in Brazil, we also have universities and college that are free because they're public. And then I went to college and I didn't feel like I belonged there. I went it thinking, okay, I need to step up. I need to help my family. I need to earn more money and I'm going to do this studying and then I'm going to college because I need to, but I didn't feel like I belonged in that space. I felt so weird, but I did it anyway. And I spent almost the first year feeling like an outsider in the college spaces because college here in Brazil is something really white and privileged and rich, something that we don't, most of the time, we don't see a lot of Black people in Brazilian colleges. So I felt like an outsider and I felt like I shouldn't be there. And then one college teachers introduced me to this book called Gênios da Humanidade, Ciência, Tecnologia, Inovação Africana e Afrodescendente. That means Geniuses of Humanity, African and Afro-Descendant Science, Technology, and Innovation. This book was written by Carlos Eduardo Dias Machado and Alexandra Loras. And these two writers, they got together to talk about, to make a historical study on Black participation on exact, biological, and human science. So this is a book with a lot of examples of Black innovators, creators during the times, since like the beginning of written history to nowadays. So I saw this book and I got really intrigued and I started to reading like I was crazy and it was a fuel in my life because the first thing that I realized about the world is that society has the tendency to acquire, we acquire the tendency to consider the self-affirmation of one individual through the denial of the other, creating a lack of empathy. So we almost say like, for me to exist and to thrive and to be uh, what I want to be, another person needs to be the exactly opposite that what I am. So if I'm good, if I'm rich, if I conquer, you can't. So this is something that society tells us every day. Like we create this competition where there is no space for us to be together and to live as a community, not only as a society, but also as a huge community. So society creates this competition, like if I exist, you can't, and this creates a lack of empathy. If I open space to other types of people, different people to exist, I lose space. So we feel like we need to reassure ourselves all the time and conquer our space. And this book tells us otherwise. And I don't know if you guys know the quote, history is written by the victors. If you do know it, you can type it in the comments where you first heard this text, this quote at the first time. We don't have the exactly author of this quote because it was said by it was this quote was attributed to so many people through history, but this is a quote that I started to rethink because yes, history is written by some people, but they are really the winners of this history. They are really the winners of our society, or these are the people who conquered lands by strength, who killed a lot of people, who committed genocide. So these are the people that are telling our story because they erased everything, our story, like the human history, because they erased a lot of things, a lot of other reference. So they are telling the story, but they are not exactly the winners of this situation. They just were the people who achieved more at the time, and most of the time not by doing something right or something legal. So African and Afro-descendant inventions were forgotten and were marginalized by Eurocentrism. And I talk a lot about Africa because our story as black people started that. So we should never forget about this. Yes, I'm Brazilian. I have Brazilian reference, but I'm also an African descendant person, an Afro-descendant person. So we should never forget about this because these tell so much about how we are perceived by society nowadays. So we must never forget about this. And when I say that our history as a community was forgotten and marginalized and erased, I mean this. We know that a lot of a lot of constructions in Egypt, they were broken through the times. They couldn't resist the wind and a lot of other things that happens in the nature. But we also know that people broke um, not pyramids, but this type of construction nose because it reminded a black person nose. So we see these constructions like um, and we don't think them as black because a lot of them had suffered from the vandalism of European people. So we don't know like a ancient Egyptian construct as something that a black person did because we don't get this reference that Egyptian people were part of the African community. Our history is so erased that when somebody plays a pharaoh, like an Egyptian ancient person in a movie, this person is always white because we don't connect that these great people that did a lot of accomplishment through the times, they were also black. So our history was erased since like the beginning of written times, in the beginning of what you call modern history. For example, One of the first known mathematicians was the Greek Pythagoras, but the Egyptian civilization already had mathematical systems way before that, like way before that. So we know Pythagoras as a reference. We know that he is him as one of the first mathematicians, but we talk so little about this Egyptian civilization that was doing a lot more at the way before he was um, talking about the mathematical system. Through the history, the African population created and had access to school. So they created school systems and university college system, and people don't know a lot about this information. We don't talk about this information, or we know about this information and we don't connect this information through Black history. So some institutions or some type of knowledge, they aren't related to what is being a Black person. So I think it's so good that we know these examples and this reference so we can expand the notion of what a Black person is. And then this book gave me great examples of great achievements. For example, Patricia Bath, that is the inventor of the treatment of cataracts. So she was one Black woman that was a surgeon, that was a researcher, and she, with her life and her lifetime study and dedication, she changed the lives of a lot of people. So I had the opportunity to know this woman through this book. And then I knew I get to know a little bit better about Alexander Miles, who was the inventor of the elevator that we know today, because they had elevators in the past, but as we know today, the main technologies, the doors closing and the doors opens, Alexander Miles was one of the persons who thought about this engine. And then I think more people know about her now because we have um, Stars Through Time. I think this is the name of the movie. I will type in the comments the right name of the movie because I forgot now. But we know Catherine G. Johnson, who was a mathematician and one of the persons who did the math to take Apollo 11 to the moon. So she was one of the first women that had the opportunity to work in a outer Earth trip. So she had this opportunity, but she didn't have a bathroom inside of her workspace. But she had the capability of doing what she did. She didn't have sometimes the tools and the research, the opportunities, but she had the capability of doing this, and she did. And then we know Lydia Newman. Here I'm bringing some more American and British examples, but we will have more Brazilian examples in the end. But she was the inventor of hair comb, so something that we still use today, a black woman invented. And then Gerald Lawson, who developed the Channel F, one of the first video games as we know today. And then he was the chief of the whole Unity. And in this Unity, they created the pause button, something that is so um, common these days. Every video game has one. He was the chief of these operations. So he developed, along of his team, of course, but he developed one of the first video games as we know today. So I was being surrounded by these great examples and great reference. And here we have a list of the ones that I wanted to get. I wanted you to know, like the guy who did the first blood bank in the world. So he studied how he could keep blood outside of a person's body, and he implanted the first blood bank in the world. And we had like the guy who created the air conditioning, the guy who created clothes dryer, the woman who invented and started to develop hair care products. So a lot of things that we see nowadays that Black people invented, we have it here. And then while I was being surrounded by this, I felt so energized about this. I felt empowered again when exactly at the same way that I felt when I was 3 years old. So I felt this circle of energy around me, and I felt like a kid again because I felt like I was discovering the world again through great reference that inspired and changed the way that I saw myself. There were a lot of things that I didn't know about other people's achievements. This book, I'm talking about inventors and the beginning of some things, but this book it opened a cultural door inside my mind. Like, I don't know a lot of things that Black people did because when I started to grow and I started to have the opportunity to really absorb this information, like when I was 10 or when I was 15, and I was observing everything that the world brings to us. Nobody told me that. So were a lot of things that I didn't know about. So I started to looking. And then, like, if I have this book and this book contains a lot of information that I don't know, what if I go outside in the world to libraries, to the internet, and start to look what other Black people did and how they thrived, how was their journey? So I started looking everywhere. And I told you guys about inventors and people who created things, but then I found more reference that talked to me when I was in college because I did a marketing school, marketing college. And then I get to know Bozoma St. John, who is a great reference to me. I think now she's a CMO of Netflix. She's the chief of marketing office in Netflix, but at the time, I think she was working in Uber, and she had this huge job at Uber, and she changed a lot of things. And I think she left Uber because she complained about some things that weren't right, and she changed some things, and the others they couldn't be changed. So she left this huge company. She accomplished a lot, but she realized that her work it was so much bigger than this job. And then she left Uber, and then another companies she worked at other companies, and now she works in Netflix. But she had the notion of her power, and she stood for herself. She stood for her community inside of this great company, this huge company. So I started to look at her history and to realize that she was really close to what I want to achieve. This woman is what I want to be. Like, I want to work in great companies, but I don't want them to feel like they own me in my most uh, intimate way. They don't own me. I can work for them, but they don't own me, and I will stand up for myself. I will stand up for my community. I will change people's payment. I will change the way this workspace works, but I won't change what I think about my worth. And then I started to research about Virgil Abloh, who is now I think he's the creative director of Louis Vuitton and Off-White, and he is a great reference in the fashion world. And then I went back in time and looked at Daniela Luna, who is one of the first Black supermodels, and how she changed the history. She had a tragical ending, but how she achieved what she wanted was so powerful, and then she inspired a lot. And then the the I had I always had a terrible time saying this guy's name. So sorry, but I would say Francis Quere. He is one of the most known architects in the world. She did some constructions for Coachella. She did colleges. He's a Nigerian. He studied his craft and gave it back to his community in Nigeria. So all these people, they started to inspire me. And I realized another very important thing, that I was physically the same of these people. Our histories and backgrounds are very similar. And went through the same situations that I went through, that I go through every single day in my life. So why, if we are so similar, why I was led to believe that I could get nowhere? If all these people did this great thing that I didn't know about, why I was led to believe that I would get nowhere? Like, if they can do this, I can also do this. They showed me that some things weren't as easy as people tell that it is, but they could do these things. It's not easy, but they were able to do. So why can I do these things also? So I started to reflect how I was seeing myself through these examples. And then, like, being more, we will talk about a little bit more about the COVID time, what is happening in the world with the pandemics. Because when I saw this video, this is a video of Anthony Mesorma Madhu. Sorry if I said his name wrong, but he's a kid who lived in Lagos, and this video was a internet viral of him dancing in the rain. And when I saw this video, I reminded uh, about I thought about myself when I was younger. Like, this kid had a huge capability. He was great at dancing. He had grace. He was a great dancer. He was a great ballet dancer, but he didn't have the opportunities. And maybe he was led to believe that he would get nowhere because of all of the things that surrounded him, like all the hardships that he was going through. He studied in the ballet school in Lagos that teaches ballet for free to take kids out of the streets. So when I saw this picture, actually this video, I reminded of myself when I was this age. And then I started to connect everything. Like, this kid has everything to achieve a lot of things, but he doesn't have the tools, and he didn't have the opportunities, because now the his internet video went viral during the pandemics, and he got a scholarship to dance in New York City. I think it's in New York City. But now he can follow his path because other people saw what he was capable to do, and they gave him the tools. They gave him the opportunity to thrive, and to they expanded the notions of what he could do. So I feel like during this pandemic time is 3 times harder to be a Black person in the world, but at the same time that is super hard. Like, for example, I will tell you some data here in Brazil. uh, I guess almost 60% of the people who die of COVID are Black people, not because they are Black, because it's not a biological thing, but because Black people have worse quality of life, worse access to healthcare, worse access to hygiene items. So the pandemic is killing us not because of biological matters, but it's killing us because of money, because of things that we don't have access to. So right now, I feel like it's way harder to be a Black person, way harder than already was. But at the same time, this doesn't take our potential and our shine away. This doesn't tells us who we are, because even if we don't have the tools, the access, the opportunities, we can still be great. Because I will show you guys some more examples because I will tell about this later. The main goal here is not to romanticize the suffering and the hardships. The main goal here is to remind you that we can achieve these things. Maybe we are not doing because we don't have the tools, but if we have it, this all always almost like um, shows us show the world what we can do. I will show you guys some more examples of this. Um, One thing that I saw that the Black community did during this pandemic time is to look out for each other, is to center our lives and our decisions to the goal of helping other Black people. So I saw, I researched some examples of other countries, but especially in Brazil, I saw the Black community to help. Um, I saw the Black community helping uh, other Black people, empowering Black business, and giving those tools, these tools that we didn't have. I saw the Black community stopping and looking inside of their own community. So I saw Black people help one Black people helping another Black people, the Black industry helping Black workers. This is one example. They have in September the Black Restaurant Week in Charlotte in the United States. So a lot of Black restaurant owners got together to help each other. Like, let's create a week where people can do a takeout in Black restaurants and they get a discount, but this will increase the movements in our restaurants. So they stopped to see each other as competitors and they started to see themselves as a community. They made a chain that made them stronger. The Black Restaurant Week was a success. So they look out after each other and they conquered a lot of things. I saw examples as Aurora James in the 50% pledge. Aurora James is a fashion designer, and she realized that uh, Black owned business were in the most dangerous, and they had a great chance to be closed in the end of the pandemic because of the opportunities, the tools, everything that we already know that sometimes Black people don't have. So she saw this, she thought about with herself, like, I have this great capacity of talking to so many big brands and so many big companies. I have this opportunity. So why don't I call them out to help other Black smaller business? Like, I achieved so many things. Why can I return to my community and see what they need and bring this demand to bigger companies? So she created this movement called 50% Bleach, and she made an open letter to, like, worldwide business like Sephora, like targeting, and she made this letter to all these bigger brands asking for 50% of their stock dedicated only to Black owned business. So she said, okay, Sephora, Black 15% of American people are Black, so why don't we get this 15% of your stories all over the world, but especially in the United States? And why don't we dedicate this space for Black owned business? Because this is the opportunity that we have to give them more awareness, to give them more space to grow, to give them more money so they can thrive and they can succeed. And Sephora accepted the 50% pledge. Now Aurora James is negotiating with other brands, but worldwide companies decided to take some spaces of their shops and dedicate it to Black owned business. So she thought, I have this privilege to be her, let this privilege to be extended to the Black community that work in the same field as I am. So she didn't saw them as a competition. She extended her hand to help. Here in Brazil, for example, we have this doll collection, this doll store called Era uma vez o mundo, Once Upon a Time the World. And this is a Black owned business that its main goal is to create dolls to bring awareness of diversity and the in, to empower Black kids. So they have all these different types of doll. It's so cute. It's really really nice. And when the pandemic started, they saw themselves in the need of closing their two shops, the only two shops that they have, and really small shops, not like a targeting store, a Target store, but they have two small stores in Brazil, and they faced the pandemic. And they thought to themselves like, we need to close. We don't have the money to keep the store open all this time. Like right now, we are 7 months, 8 months in the pandemic, like living with COVID, and a lot of people and a lot of Black business didn't survive those times, and they thought to themselves, we will be one of them. We don't have anything else that we can do to survive through this crisis. And they made a tweet. Made a tweet about their situation, and a lot of people shared it, and a lot of Black people started to help, and people started to do online orders so they could help. And then now they have these dolls are being done with what was the leftover of fabric that other Black owned companies donated to them. So we have the fabric texture here in Brazil, and the Black owners decided to get together to donate some fabrics to the doll store. So I'm seeing the Black community is facing a lot of challenge, and it's not easy, but I'm seeing all these initiatives so we can be stronger in the end. So this was something that it was really inspiring to me. And I'm seeing these examples and this reference and these people helping each other. I'm seeing this, but I sometimes I don't see this in the main media here in Brazil. And then I research and I look through some newspapers in the US, and then I don't see them talking about this. And then I go to UK newspapers and the news, and I don't see them talking about this. So when we see the big picture, we almost don't see ourselves. And when we see it, especially during the COVID times, we always see so much suffering, and we always see these examples of what a Black person is being portrayed as in such a bad light. So I started to research these examples, and I started to bring these examples to other people so we could feel like our victories, they may not be uh, seen by everybody, but they exist, and we need to celebrate them. We need to spread this word. So this is what I try to do with this presentation. Like I said, the goal here is not to romanticize the hardships. It's not to romanticize, oh, this kid was dancing in the rain. He's such a winner. Now he got everything that he wanted, because we know that he may be an exception. He's not the main rule. He may be an exception. It's not everybody who has the viral video is spread on the internet and wins a scholarship. So we know that the reality is way deeper and harder than sometimes people may think that we face in this presentation. But the main goal here is to think about our community. If you are a woman, for example, and you think like, I felt so powerless, I feel like I can achieve a lot of things. I feel like I can be a soccer player, I can be a scientist. If you think these things in your daily basis, I want to take a little bit of your time after this presentation to research another female models and other women who did what you wanted to do, what you want to do. So if you are part of the LGBTQ community, I can tell how hard your daily basis must be sometimes, but I want you to think about your community, and I want you to think how amazing and incredible things people from your community achieved during the years. One of my friends who is gay was telling me that one of the first computers was not created, but one of the people who worked in the first computer project, it was gay and had a husband, and he told me this story with tears in his eyes because this person achieved something so huge, and this person is it was exactly like he is right now. And if this person could do this, now we need to find the tools and the opportunity to get these achievements. And if you're not part of any minorities, this is the time to think how you can help minorities to achieve what they want. If you feel like you have a platform to speak, if you feel like you're more heard than them, what why are you not talking about all of this? Why are you not spreading the word and thinking about them as your partners and not your competition? Like I said in the beginning, the society sometimes made us feel like there's no space for everybody, but I'm here to tell you that it is. And if we create this chain of empathy, everybody can follow their path, can live a safer life. So I think it's really important for all of us to think about our communities and to think about society. Here, the main goal is not to romanticize what is hard, but then to focus in what we can do to help others. Before you think you're not able to do something, reflect on what society has taken away from you. So this is one advice that I leave to everybody that is watching this presentation. So don't think that you're not capable of doing something, because sometimes you don't have everything that we discussed. And if you have the opportunity, you would succeed in what you want. So if you can give this opportunity to minorities, please think deeper about doing that. And if you're a minority, don't feel helpless because things are hard right now, because I'm sure that things will be better for you in the future. I'm really, really hoping for this, and I'm working for this to happen. And I love this tweet, and I always leave it in the end of my presentations, because resistance is not a one-lane highway. Maybe your lane is protesting, maybe your lane is organizing, maybe your lane is counseling, art, activism, maybe your lane is taking care of yourself, your mental health. Do not feel guilty about not doing everything, because we are human beings. We only can do like one thing at the time, but we need all of those things. So try to find your path and to follow it, because I'm sure you're helping the world to be a better place in your own way. And was everything that I wanted to tell you guys. Thank you so much for your time. If you have any questions, now is the time that I will be answering to them. And thank you so much, In Place of War, for this opportunity. Thanks so much for this summit. I think this is the one of the initiatives, like I told you guys in the past, that really changed the world and really give this space that we need to dream, to be inspired, to feel like we are connected in this bigger goal in the end. So thank you so much for that. Thank you so much for the opportunity. Thank you to all of them who heard me through this hour. And that's it, guys. If you have any questions, I will be answering them on the chat. Thank you so much.
I am now live, and I have a real life, not, I was going to say in the flesh, not quite in the flesh, but I have a real live Anna with me virtually. So hi Anna, thank you so much for that amazing presentation, and so nice to have you with us.
Hi guys. Thanks everyone for watching. This is one of my favorite subjects, the Black history through the years. So I was so happy to talk to you guys. Not live, but right now, totally live.
I actually noticed you talked about the Apollo space mission and the Black amazing women involved in that, and that's actually a film called Hidden Figures with Janelle Monáe, which I think was the name you were trying to think of, which I watched last week and is one of the best films I've seen in a long time. If anyone hasn't seen it, I can't.
Please watch it.
Yeah, it's so fierce. So I've got a couple of questions from people. If you're ready.
Yeah, totally. Go for it.
Okay, so the first one is, obviously you've talked about a lot of role models in that talk there, but who would you say is the role model that you're most inspired by, if you have to just choose one?
Oh my God. This is the hardest question for me, because I have a few role models about what I do for work, like advertising and marketing models. I have models of lifestyle. I will choose one. It's super difficult for me, but I don't think there is anyone in this world that doesn't love Martin Luther King, and I love him because he found strength in peace. He didn't try to, because when we talk about resistance, people always imagine it something like really tough or violence. And I feel like everybody has a part on the resistance of the Black community. But when I think about myself, what I do for a living and how I live my life, I always feel like I inspired more people talking than doing every other thing, because I went through a communication college. I do this for a living. I've been talking like crazy since I have like 3 years old. So I feel like this is my specialty. And for the longest time, I feel like my like talking wasn't enough. But then I started to study other role models, and I feel like now I found my place in this discussion and in this fight. So I would choose him, but this is so hard for me. So hard. I could say like 50 people or more.
We'll take that one. Yeah. And another question is, obviously there was some films and books mentioned, but are there any other sort of reading or films that you would recommend for people like going on this journey to learn more about Black history and Black change makers?
This is so hard because I usually read Brazilian authors. I can give you the names of the books and you guys can research later, or I will type in the comments later. But I love reading Djamila Ribeiro. The name of the woman is Djamila Ribeiro. She has a series of books about Black feminism and how Black women are fighting back in Brazil, because not that I avoid reading other authors of other countries, but Brazil is such a specific country, it's such a specific history. And I feel like when she brings the feminism and the Black fights together, and when she finds philosophers and sociologists to talk about these subjects. I feel like the context fits my life so much. So it's Djamila Ribeiro, is like Djamila, Djamila. It's like such a hard name to say, but I love her books. I love her series. I love how she makes me feel so understood as a Black woman in Brazil. And it's so good if you are trying to study other countries and how the feminist fight is started in Brazil for a Black woman. Her series are like the best. So I would recommend to you all.
Amazing. Okay, and we'll put that name in the group so people can see it.
Yeah.
That's quite hard for us to spell.
I will type it because like Djamila is even a hard name to say in Portuguese.
Yeah.
So, and for Brazilian
English ones finished.
I put in the comments here on Zoom, so you guys can put it on the chat.
And I've got another question which has come through on our WhatsApp group, which is, do you think there's any reforms to be made in education with the way that Black people are conveyed? And if so, how would you change it? What would you add? What would you take away? Yeah, what are your thoughts?
Yes, there are changes to be made in education. I will talk about the Brazilian context and what is happening in our country right now. I was talking to Bobby earlier, and people not being educated is a project here in Brazil because the government feels like it's easier to manipulate people in this way. So when people don't learn about certain subjects here in Brazil, is a project. This is not like a misunderstanding or because somebody forgot to teach something. This is a governmental project. And when I think about formal education, I feel like people don't know, like I said in the presentation, people don't know about good Black role models, or people start to study Black history from the moment where people were enslaved. From this moment on, people don't study that person who became a slave through a system of oppression. This person could be like a king or could be a housewife. This person had a normal life before slavery. So I feel like mainly in really talking about history and history classes, Brazilian people need to know about their upbringings because we are not taught that in school. And I don't know about other countries, but like I said, I feel like the history is told about the perspective of people who conquered something. And it doesn't matter if it's in a aggressive way, in a violent way. People will tell their story because they conquered that piece of land or they conquered that country. And since Black people were the one being oppressed, we don't know our history, and this is such a hard subject for me because this is like I said, this is the easiest way to manipulate people. I believe it for the longest time that I couldn't be successful or that I couldn't be pretty, like I couldn't feel pretty because something was wrong with me, because I didn't fit some type of beauty standards, or like when I saw people who inspired me within my workplace, I couldn't find people like me. I couldn't find people in advertising, in marketing. So I always had this conflict, and now I have learned that it's not because people don't want to be there. And then I had to learn this all by myself in college or with help of some friends or teachers. And my main change for the educational system would be like to rethink the way that we teach Black history in schools, because this is the main thing. Like, this is a principle and most basic thing that we can do, but it's super important. And we are not having this right now.
Absolutely. I mean, as a person from the UK, I don't think we did any Black history at school at all. So like, we have a really long way to go. And I think that when we had the Black Lives Matter protests in the UK, that was one of the demands, was to teach Black history. It's just, we learn about wars and the Tudors, and actually Black history is a lot more relevant than the Tudors. But
yeah,
it's
exactly.
not in their curriculum, which just seems so crazy.
And you learn like who invented this and who invented that and who did this and who conquered that, but most of the time through a white perspective. So this is super important.
Yeah. Right. Well, we're almost at the end of the session. There's and Tabby Sang, who is in South Africa, has just messaged to say thank you so much. She's so super inspired. So thank you for watching, and Tabby Sang. But I think, yeah, we sort of pretty much need to wind that up now. So thank you, Anna. And for me, like the way you started the talk, talking about your personal journey. So the fact that you were brought up a confident young woman, and then society told you there was something wrong with you, and then how you managed to overcome that is, yeah, that's a really incredible way to kind of bring us into the talk. So thank you for sharing that with us. And yeah, and I've been to Egypt and I had no idea that the noses were all knocked off. I thought it was just that, like, the elements or whatever. So that has educated me.
Yeah, like some sphinx. I never know how to say this word. Like, yeah, yeah, exactly. Sometimes they don't have the nose about because of vandalism. So this is something that I really like to talk to people about, because most of the people don't know, so don't feel bad about this. And it's always a pleasure.
I'll tell my mother. She had no idea. She talked about the weather and all sorts. So.
But it's a great pleasure to be here always. It's a great pleasure to be talking about this subject, because if one person hears me talking and feel like she or he wants to be studying more about the Black community and Black history, I'm already fulfilled by that, because sometimes it only takes one person to change something. So that's always super grateful.
And that final quote you had, which I think applies almost to everybody, that we expect so much of ourselves, and finding your lane. I've seen some messages on the WhatsApp and on the chat, so I know you've definitely inspired at least one person, definitely more. So thank you so much for joining us. And just to let everyone know, if you stay around, in 3 minutes, we have another amazing woman. We have Leifel Stock from Manchester, who's going to be doing a couple of songs for us. So don't go anywhere. Yeah, we'll see you back in a couple of minutes. And thank you again, Anna. You're amazing.
Thank you, guys. Bye-bye. Stay to see the show.
Yeah, bye from us.